Good evening. I'm broadcasting live at the moment from the Bradfield electorate, which is in the Guringai and which is in Guringai and Darug countries. Welcome to an analysis for the 2025 Australian federal election. I meant to do a live stream last night, but things were very complicated. It was a high-paced night. Lots of things were changing, and I was getting quite exhausted, and it's been quite stressful over the past couple of weeks. Hair's like that for a reason now, and is falling off a little bit. So now we're sort of doing like a post-mortem analysis of the election as we sort of get some of the final results coming now. I'm joined by Jack Oakhill, representing the Liberal Party. He also runs he's from the Bradfield electorate, and he's running, and he runs a channel himself, Sydney Metro Train and Bus Lover. And we also got Blake Shadbolt, who is representing the ALP, Australian Labor Party. He's based down in Melbourne, in Victoria. So welcome to you both. And also we hope to have someone else, AJ Walsh, who is representing the Community Independents. He's based up in the seat of Indi, which is up around Albury. And it would be wonderful if Taylor Owens shuts up for just a couple of seconds. Service continues to the T9 Northern Line. We all know that. Okay, Kevin. So welcome to you both, and welcome to everyone who's joining now.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you. Yeah. So as some of you might have heard, especially if you've been watching this channel, there is a lot of things happening at the moment. There was an election. The election was declared at the end of March, and there's been a huge campaign coming up to yesterday, and the results have come in. I will share my screen. I was kind of not prepared. So just be it will just be a moment. Just stand by. It will just anyway, so it won't let me, which I'm actually really annoyed with now. So but anyway, so there's been, come on, why is it letting me share? No, it won't. Okay, it won't let me without having to restart this entire thing, so which makes me pretty bloody annoyed. So but if you've seen the results, could either you, Jack, or Blake, could you share your screens for with
Yes,
the
I'll do that right now. Just give me one tick. I will get it on. I just want to check. I have a monitor in use, so I just want to see what screen will share.
So there was an election happen. It happened last night, and there's been some quite big changes, and the results were definitely not were definitely quite interesting, and a lot different from from what a lot of people were expecting on the night. So while Jack loads up the screen, I'll give you the seat results according to Channel 9 at the moment. The ALP has 88 seats across the country. There are 76 seats needed for majority, so they are well and truly beyond a majority now. So they're in government, they're staying in government. The LNP's down to 36 seats, which is one of their worst results in recent memory. The independents, so not just community independents, but also other independents as well, are on 9. The Greens apparently have they finally attained a seat, which would probably be the seat of Melbourne, but I'll just double check. Melbourne's currently too close to call, so it'd probably be so the seat of Ryan up in Brisbane looks like the Greens will retain that one. Their other two Brisbane seats they've lost. But yeah, so that's how things are going with that. So there's been and there's still 14 more seats left to call according to Channel 9 at the moment. Are you able to share your screen? Oh,
I
sorry. Here we go.
that's
Here we
right.
go.
The information.
So this is currently Jack's currently showing the seat of Bradfield at the moment, which is up in the North Shore of Sydney. That's where I'm currently at the moment. It used to be one of the most safest Liberal seats in the country. It was home of Billy Hughes, home of Dr. Brendan Nelson, who was leader of the opposition 2007 to 2008, and also recently Paul Fletcher, who was a minister in quite a few mainly communications portfolios there. So, but it's seeming like that, there's just over a majority at the moment in, with them at the moment. So it seems like that Bradfield may, the Liberals may lose the seat of Bradfield at the moment, but we'll see, how that goes further throughout the night. So this is sort of, this looks like a very weird map of Australia, but it's just, just shows, where all the seats are, and I'm starting to get pretty pissed off with Taylor Owens at the moment. I'm actually going to pick up and I'm going to walk away. Sydney Trains, you've just lost yourself a customer. I'm having my driving test tomorrow, so I'll be very happy. You've just lost a customer. You have hereby lost a customer. Anyways, but so at the moment that is the seat of Dickson. So that's up in Queensland. So that was the now former leader of the opposition's electorate, seat of Dickson, which is up in northern Queensland. There's been it was he's had the seat since 2001, but it was always on a pretty tight margin. But now Labor, with I believe it's Ali France. Ali France has taken that seat. With the help of also a community independent running in the seat of Dickson as well. So yeah, so quite early in the night, the seat of Dickson was lost. The seat of Dickson was lost to Labor quite early in the night. And then there's been, so I've just walked up a whole bunch of steps. There still needs to be some light so that you all can see me. But yeah, so the seat of Dickson, was pretty disastrous. I'm sorry, pretty disastrous for the coalition. So sort of as a post, what they call in politics a post, you can check out more of the results at abc.net.au. Basically, Labor and quite a few of the independents were huge winners last night, but the Greens and the coalition were pretty big losers tonight, potentially now losing, the very core Liberal heartland seat of Bradfield, which both Jack and I are from. So as you're, Jack, as you're here as as a part of the Liberal Party tonight, what do you think about, the result? So what do you think about the results tonight? Where do you think the Liberal Party could improve, so then in 3 years' time they could, potentially get back into government?
Well, Matthew, I think that Giselle Captier has done a great job. I've been volunteering for her over the campaign, and it is very hard. Like, it's very crazy to see these numbers coming in. Obviously, as they stand right now, it's Nicolette Buller has a total of 47,187 votes, and Giselle Captier has 45,546. Nicolette holds the lead by 1,641 votes. So, I'm hoping that they can get back in. Something I think that the Liberal Party need to do, not just mainly Giselle, is definitely their leadership. I think they need to improve on their leadership and especially their public perception. Obviously, most of the people who will be watching the stream have seen that Peter Dutton did not do the bestest of jobs as a Liberal, as representing the Liberal Party tonight. This is a bit weird for me to say, but Peter Dutton did not do the best job that he could. He definitely needed to do better, as well as the Liberals move to trying to get young voters by putting these brain rot TikTok and Instagram things up. And yes, they might be funny, and everyone's been laughing about it, but it's not really it's not really politics. That's just, some of them are funny, some of them relate, but some of them just goofy. So engagement with younger voters is definitely something, and I think I think that's probably it. I reckon that's probably what I have to say. It's obviously very upsetting for me, representing the Liberal Party this evening, that I've seen that Peter Dutton sadly lost his seat in Dickson, which is something I was not going to expect. So I suppose that Ali France will be very, very, very happy with that result. I don't know how long have the Liberals held the seat of Dickson. Matthew, do you know?
Peter Dutton's had that seat since 2001.
Okay, so he's held the seat for a while, which is quite it's very surprising to see Ali France take over the seat. But congratulations to Ali France. She's a good candidate for the Labor Party. And obviously, looking here at the Bradfield electorate results. Obviously,
we've just had an update now. The margin is just tightening further. Nicolette Buller is leading now by just 904 votes.
Yes, I've just seen that as well.
So we've just had an update. So so the margin's just grown a little bit more thinner at the moment. It's now less than 1,000 votes between the two candidates, so it could really go down. With now 81% of a vote counted, the margin could be quite tight tonight, and
I've
into
got an
into
election
next week.
analyst who can join if you want.
Yeah, sure thing. If you want to send them the link.
Yeah, cool. I'll do that now. Continue talking, Jack. Not to interrupt.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. So yeah, basically, talking about the seat of Bradfield, I will shut up about this now in a minute. But I think that there could be people watching from the electorate of Bradfield. Obviously, Matthew and I are in the electorate of Bradfield, and I have done lots of research, and something that is very common. I think lots of news articles published it was that you vote what your family vote, you vote what your parents vote, and that's something I don't believe in. Now, my family have been Liberals since 1992, and my mum has, my grandfather has, lots of my family has, and if I could vote, I would vote Liberals. But I did my research. I did not just okay, I'm going to vote Liberals because my family are voting Liberals. I'm just going to follow in their footsteps and vote the Liberals. But no, I believe it's really, really important to do your research, see who you want to vote for, see who you want to represent your electorate, because I think it's really important. And I will say we should have a little bit of it's like the few of the debates where I think it was 7 years asked Albo and Dutton to say something nice to each other. So this evening I will be saying nice things about the other candidates. I think that Nicolette Buller is an amazing independent candidate. I just don't believe with some of her policies. As you can see, it's very, very, very tight. I had to go close to the screen. Nicolette Buller has just gotten over the little grey. There's a little grey line representing the middle. She's just gotten over that. So yes, hopefully Giselle can get back in. Can get back. Obviously, what Matthew was saying before, there was an update, and that she's leading by less than 1,000 votes now. So we'll see how that goes. Let's also have a look at some key seats.
So some other key seats. Bennelong, was there was a redistribution, which meant that if the votes were exactly the same as last time, Bennelong would have been held by the Liberal Party by just 84 votes. But the current MP is Jerome Laxale. He served the electorate for about 3 years, but with the result, the results, there was quite a significant swing towards Jerome Laxale. He got way more votes than last time, and it's become with 59.5% of the vote, he's with a 13.7% swing. He has well and truly retained his seat. In the seat of Gilmore, you would have seen a little bit of that just a moment ago. Andrew Constance was trying to run again. He ran last time in 2022, quit state politics to run for federal election. He lost that time, and now he's lost quite significantly to the current incumbent Fiona Phillips at the moment. So 4.9% swing towards the ALP. So Andrew Constance has lost that. Fowler, which was originally a very safe Labor seat until Christina Keneally, former New South Wales Premier, came in and contested the seat after the retirement of Chris Hayes, and Diley, the local independent there. She took the seat, and she has maintained that. So she's keeping her seat. So she kept her seat last night and will keep it for the next 3 years. Some other seats as well, if you want to go back, have a look. Robertson, a very big bellwether seat. This is a seat where if you want to see how the entire country is going to go, Robertson's a good spot to look at first. And as you can see, Gordon Reid, MP last time, he won pretty he won pretty well there. And then we can have a look at some other electorates. Jack?
Yeah, sorry about that. So I'll just go back to the previous seat. Sorry about that. Here's Cooper, whatever you call it. There you go. Sorry, I just had to stay out for 1 minute. Sorry.
So Cowper, this seat's been retained by the Nationals. Kaz Heiss, who ran as an independent candidate last time in 2022, made the seat more, from being very safe to being fairly safe towards marginal. But Pat Conahan has kept the seat. Will continue to retain that seat, even with quite a significant challenge by Kaz Heiss. If you want to, Jack, if you want to check the next seat. We've talked about Bradfield already. Patterson, that's Labor held seat. Liberals are wanting to get that seat. But yeah, then Patterson is being retained by Labor. They're sort of like Northern Newcastle, inner, Lower Hunter. So Mel Swanson there. She's keeping that seat. The next seat, there was an interesting one, McKellar, which is the seat just north, sort of the northern part of the Northern Beaches. Used to be very safe Liberal seat, but Dr. Sophie Scumps won it last time, and she's keeping her seat even with James Brown contesting it. There's been a 0.2% swing towards her and a 4% swing against James Brown. Parramatta marginal seat there. Dr. Andrew Charlton, is the incumbent member there. Katie Mullins, who I know. Katie Mullins, she's had a 6.4% swing against her, and Dr. Andrew Charlton's had an 8.6% swing towards them. So he's definitely keeping that seat. The seat of Hunter, more marginal. It's been Labor for quite a long time, but there was a contest between the Nationals and One Nation apparently. There's been a 6% swing against the Nationals, 4% swing towards Labor and Legalized Cannabis Party, 6.2% swing towards One Nation. So that's now a two-candidate preferred contest between Labor and One Nation, which is an interesting result there. If we want to check some more seats, we won't need to press on all of them. But Reid is a marginal seat with Labor. It's been won by Liberal a few times. They're definitely keeping that seat. There's been a good swing towards them there. Next seat, just you don't need to click on the full profile. We'll just go through all of them quickly. Where was the next seat? Very safe Labor seat. Gough Whitlam had this seat for quite a long time. This was Gough Whitlam's seat. The Liberals were, Anne Stanley, has been the member there. The Liberals were wanting to take this seat. If they had a good night, they would have gone in the seat, but they're not getting that. Wentworth, it was one of the first community independent seats. It used to be a very safe Liberal seat. It was home of former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull for a long time. But Dr. Karen Phelps won that seat back in 2018, and then in 2019, the Liberals got that seat, and then the Independents, got with Allegra Spender. Got that seat. She's but the results, if we were to check the full profile, which we won't, Allegra Spender won that seat. Greenway, quite a safe Labor seat there. Labor, is not, rather, fairly safe Labor seat. Greenway is staying with Labor. If we can please go back to the main page, it'd be very helpful.
Yes, here you go.
Deakin. Here we go. So, if you want to have a chat about this, Blake, and because we haven't heard a lot from you tonight, Blake, and just keep in mind time is starting to run a little bit out for me, but with the so you've done a lot of campaigning around Deakin, Menzies, and if you want to scroll down, Jack, a little bit more, Deakin, Menzies, Casey, and if you want to keep scrolling down, and a few other seats as well. How's everything been up there, and what do you think about the results, for tonight? Because Labor's won, except for Casey and Monash and a few others, pretty much everything in northeast Melbourne has gone for Labor except for Kooyong. Kooyong, is that's remaining independent. Same with Goldstein as well. So what do you think about the results?
All right. First off, Jack, can you please open Deakin up? I'm gonna be like an Anthony Green here.
Michael Sukkar, this might be a familiar name for some people.
Michael Sukkar is I don't know what to say now. Whether I label him as the former or current. What would you say? What should we label him as?
Well, the incumbent. He was the incumbent, and But...
So first preference, as normal, went to Liberal as normally does, but this campaign we actually ran a really, really strong one in Deakin. From 2022, only missing out by 20-something votes with only one social media post. which was pretty shit, let's be honest, to now electing the same candidate but winning the seat, having a social media campaign, having a presence in the community. We can just see at the top left corner, we have almost won the seat by over 7,000 votes. No one liked Sukkar and Deakin. No one liked how he wanted to cut the NDIS. He should be on it. I'm going to say that as I'm on the NDIS. And then the Shadow Minister for Housing, he hasn't built a single house for the Commonwealth. In the whole 10 years the Liberals were in power, they didn't have one singular Commonwealth housing minister. But as Jack did, we have to compliment him somehow. I will compliment Michael Sukkar on his ambition to community, as he was always out at events, meeting with his constituents and actually getting out there, whereas some MPs don't go out there and network with their constituents, take down their concerns and actually follow up on them. But that's something Michael Sukkar's office did very, very well.
Yes.
So if you want to, do you have anything else to mention about Deakin, or otherwise we'll go over to Menzies?
Oh, I can go to Menzies if you want.
Yeah, so, just quickly, Deakin was, Liberal seat for quite a long time. Now it's gone over to Labor. So now the seat of Menzies, which is another, it used to be quite a safe Labor, safe Liberal seat. It's literally in the name. So Robert Menzies, the founder of the party. Now we've got Rowan McMaster joining us at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can bingo.
There you go.
So
Good evening, everybody.
here we go. Welcome, Rowan. Thank you so much for having us tonight.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. So, Blake, if you want to just continue just talking about Menzies.
Oh god! All right. I haven't personally been on the Menzies campaign. I'm going to go off what we were told in the Deakin and Casey campaigns. So I'm going to get straight to the point and talk nice about Keith Wilhelm, because that's probably the easiest part. Keith is a great person. I've met him multiple times through schooling events through the Manningham Shire, which is the Shire for, Warrandyte, Templestowe, Doncaster and surrounds that are all in the Menzies electorate. Keith is a people's person. When he's out in the community, he's recognised. People like him. But how I feel he lost is how Liberals probably lost the election, and that is Dutton. Nobody likes Dutton. And that's probably where the Liberals lost. In Menzies, Keith was running a strong campaign. People were liking it. They just didn't like Dutton. Fuck, I almost sound like the Australian Labor Party just attacking Dutton. I'm going to try and refrain from doing that. But Gabrielle is a first-term candidate, whereas the last candidate, Naomi Oakley, this time ran in Casey. Gabrielle is a member of Box Hill Branch, if I'm correct. I'll actually have to confirm that. Please tell me no one from the ABC is watching, because I do not want to be fact-checked. But Gabrielle is from the Box Hill area and has a very passionate interest in the Chinese, where the Chinese make up 30-something% of Menzies voters. I'm not sure exactly, but it's the most Chinese first-speaking language electorate in the whole country. With the first preference, as you can see there was a slight swing against Liberal and a major swing to Labor. But we've seen that across the board. It's all because of Dutton. I'm going to conclude before I yap everyone's ear off with shit I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Just before we go back to go back to Bradfield, and then we're also going to talk with Rowan McMaster as well. I'd love to hear from him. If you want to talk quickly about Casey, you were campaigning over in Casey.
Yeah.
So, Casey, from what I remember that this used to be Tony Smith's seat. If any of you know
Correct.
Australian politics, he was Speaker of the House for quite a long time. Any political nerd, will have, a portrait of him up, beside Milton Dick and also Anthony Green. I have like a little portrait of, it's like North Korea. You got the three of them, alongside up at the top of every classroom.
You got to have Anthony Green, though.
Was that?
You've got to have Anthony Green.
Yeah, you got to. Absolutely. If you don't have a portrait of him and, at home, you're missing out. Anyway, Casey.
All right. Casey has been a Liberal seat since 1983. Wow. So at the start of the Casey campaign, we had two people looking to run. We had, I don't know if I can say it, so I'm just going to say as much about them as I can without revealing them because I don't want to be fired by the Labor Party. We had two people looking at running. One was a member of my branch who I get along well with, and the other was a person who was the front runner to run for us in Casey. But due to ASC rules, they couldn't due to dual citizenship in Australia and Vietnam.
Bloody Section 44 of the Constitution.
Oh, you're telling me. And then Naomi Oakley, the Labor candidate now, she's ran in multiple elections. 2022 federal election, she ran in Menzies, which we just spoke about. 2022 state election, she ran in Warrandyte against, I don't remember who it was. It was the bloke that got booted out or something, and then that prompted the by-election. And then this year, she obviously ran in Casey. Naomi is originally from the Yarra Valley, serving as a cop, and she owns a security firm out here in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. I'm going to be honest and attack our party here. We didn't run a strong campaign. Our social media campaign was pretty shit. Most of it was just reposting content that ministers have already posted. We only had one minister visit, and that was Penny Wong, and that was to announce about the urgent care clinic promise we have. First preferences originally were swinging to us. As you may have seen this morning, Casey was too close to call, and Naomi was ahead by 200 votes. But in typical pre-poll fashion, the Liberals won those, and now the seat has been called for Liberals. And given this is my home electorate, I'm going to be passionate and talk about Aaron for a minute and a half, if I can. Aaron is a great person. He's like Keith, a people's person. I've known him before he even entered politics through local sporting events and community engagement programs, where he has a real passion for NDIS, such as myself, and I think, Matt, you do too. But times when you've needed Aaron, even if you're a Labor Party member, Greens member, no matter who you are, Aaron is there to help you. I'm having social burnout. I'm going to stop.
So I'm putting everybody too much on the spot tonight.
You really are, and I'm going to file a lawsuit now.
Oh my god! At least I have the correct dress for court. But anyways,
in my pajamas.
Anyways, so Jack, you wanted to talk about Bradfield very quickly?
Yeah, I will talk about Bradfield. Bradfield, yeah, let me just get the thing up for Bradfield. Bradfield.
Bradfield, Dr. John Job Crew Bradfield, building the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Suburban Network.
So,
Bring back the monorail.
We won't comment about Queensland, what he was trying to do up in Queensland.
so Bradfield. Okay, Bradfield is my home. If you got any new, is my home electorate. So is Matthews, and
Pretty obvious.
I'd like to just talk about Bradfield for a minute because I'd actually like to talk about the efforts that I think the Liberal Party have done here in Bradfield, especially Giselle Kaptearian. Now, we might not like Peter Dutton. That might be an egregious thing among all of the panelists today, unless you're well, I'm from the Liberal Party, so I should be saying, yeah, Peter Dutton, I like Peter Dutton, he's amazing. But Peter Dutton is a good candidate. However, I think that the way he didn't really do his campaigning correctly, the best that he could have. So, Matthew, I've just loaded up some photos into the deck. Could you show the photo of me with Fletcher, please?
So these two. So this is Paul Fletcher over here. He's the he's now the former member for Bradfield. So that's obviously you campaigning with him, and then that's you and Giselle together.
So I'd just like to say a few things. If you could go back to if you could just keep the one of Paul Fletcher up, and then we'll go to Giselle. So I just want to say a few things because no hate to Paul Fletcher. He might see this stream one day. I don't know. He might be here.
He knows me well. Both of us have been good friends for a long time.
Yeah. So Paul Fletcher, from what I can remember, has never done a campaign in Bradfield like Giselle's done. I think Giselle has gone. There's a line, and I think Giselle's crossed it with her campaigning efforts. She was out every single day at pre-poll. As soon as it opened, it ended. She's been traveling everywhere, even before pre-poll. She was out using her days wisely and trying to get the message out that she's going to get Australia back on track. She's going to represent Bradfield well. Now, Paul Fletcher was a absolutely great candidate for Bradfield, and I'd just like to say a few things. It's a bummer that he's leaving. I think a lot of people were sad. I was in school the day I received an email from his newsletter saying he was, hanging up the books, hanging up the ropes, and he was leaving. He was leaving the big space of politics and everything. So big shout out to Paul Fletcher, who will be on my podcast, which I haven't mentioned in a few months. I also need to get to Giselle's on my podcast. We're just getting that episode out. Now, if you could just go to the photo, Giselle.
Sure thing.
So this is me with Giselle. This was the last evening of, not the last evening. This was taken in the last 20 minutes of election day. So this is what I was doing in my last 20 minutes of election day. I was out all day campaigning, doing some few things. Yes, Liberal Party, Giselle. Giselle Kaptearian is, in my opinion, the best candidate that we could have had, and that we have had for the Liberal Party, for Bradfield. She is so kind. She knows what she's doing. And I really do hope that she does get in. But I will be kind to the other candidates and say that Nicolette, I will say a few things about Nicolette Buller. I think Nicolette Buller is a fantastic candidate. We've had her for the past 2 elections, and then we had Tina I think that's her name. Tina.
Hang on. So, in North Sydney, it's been Kylie Tink. In
Sorry,
Barrow,
that's it.
Tina
Yes.
Brown.
Yes, that's it. No, sorry, I'm thinking of Tina Brown. No, but we did have an independent before, and now obviously the independent is Nicolette Buller, and I think something that Nicolette Buller did really, really well was her social media. She actually did very well. I said at the start of this stream that I don't think the things that could have been the Liberal Party could have improved were how they post the stuff on social media. You know, it's outright. I am a teenager. I am turning 15 soon, and it's just not funny. Some of the stuff is so funny. There have been good videos every now and then, but it's just so stupid that I think that's what they're wasting their campaigning on. That's what they're wasting their time on. So it's outright silly. I think that's what the Liberal Party could have done better. But Nicolette Buller, if I can get it up, I don't know if I can. If it's gonna let me. I'm just gonna pull this up. So there was is it live streaming? Yes, it is.
Next Gen for Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's an Instagram account called Next Gen for Nick, and it's like the Young Liberals, and they have done really, really well in how they're posting stuff on social media. They've got lots of volunteers, and a lot of them are actually quite young, which is very good. And I think they've done well as Nicolette's just outright social media use. She did a really good section called T1 Takes. I'm just going to take it off just in case of copyright or anything, but she did a really good type thing called T1 Takes, where she would get on the T1 train line and she would go out and ask people, what's your take? And I think that the Liberal Party, especially Giselle Capterian, needed to do stuff like this. There's youth in Bradfield. There's Knox, which is a huge, huge school. There's Barker. There is what else?
Knox is just there.
There's Knox. There's Roseville College. This is what she should have done.
Fans.
Yeah, this is what she should have done, and I think it would have deeply helped her campaign. Because a lot of young people are now going with I don't want to vote for major parties. I'd rather vote for community independence. And how you could change that I think we've just lost.
Yeah, I just got a text message saying that that both his computer died and also the house power has died as well. So, so yeah. So, yeah, you know.
All right, I will get off so I can let Rowan talk.
Yeah. Just wanted to, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll get off. I'll stop talking about Bradfield. I think I'm a Bradfield fan, but really good luck to
From the M1 Pacific Motorway to the Royal North Shore Hospital, this is Bradfield. Anyways,
really good luck to Giselle Capterian. I'm going to head off. Stop talking about Bradfield. And I'm very interested to see what Rowan has to say. So I will head off.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, you can stay. You can stay on here, but we'll.
No, I'll stay. I'll just head off and talk.
Okay. All right, then perfect. All right, then. So, thank you so much, Rowan, for for joining us today. This wasn't planned, but it's wonderful. Having you here tonight. So, I've just noticed here that you're the chief election analyst over at 8 News down in Victoria. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what your role is over at 8 News?
My role at 8 News Victoria, I founded the whole thing, but I have other people who do behind the scenes stuff. In fact, Blake does run some of the social media sort of things. My role mainly entails being the Anthony Green of 8 News Victoria. I crunch all of the numbers and predict who will win. So that's basically my role.
No, well, we got the perfect person here tonight. So, So it's a wonderful surprise. So thank you so much for having, for coming on to the show. Um, so um, I'm guessing you had to, give, you had to do all the analysis and get all the results out tonight. How was it last night?
I
With
was
all
pretty
that,
hectic last night. However, I'm sort of just once I do elections, I sort of take a few weeks off but that won't happen until all the results for both the House of Reps and Senate are finalised. So it was a pretty hectic job keeping up with all the numbers. A few issues going through with the AEC's media feed, which also affected the ABC's computer system, affected me as well. We had to switch to their own website, which was surprisingly accurate, which assisted in calling the election for Labor.
Mhm. Yeah. So if you're able to, what do you think about the results tonight? With what seems to be quite a strong Labor landslide. Independents, maintaining their hold. At the moment, what do you think?
I do believe that it has been indeed a Labor landslide. I believe that at the end of the day, Labor did run the stronger campaign. Also, with Trumpet of Patriots, those sort of parties obviously not getting seats. I believe that the spam text messages had something to do with this. I'd just like to touch on a few seats down in the state of Victoria. We'll start with Melbourne, where the ALP is currently leading over Greens leader Adam Bandt. There's still only around 60% of votes counted, so I'm still going to say that it is too close to call.
Rowan, would you
however,
like to share your screen? I can just hop off and you can share your screen if you'd like.
Sorry, Kat, I think I'm on mobile anyway, so I'm not sure how to do that. I do apologize.
Yeah. That's that's fine. If you want to just type up Melbourne, that's the electorate of Melbourne. So that's sort of, like right in the heart of a CBD there. So that's Melbourne, all right. So if you want to explain a little bit more about what's been happening.
So I'm getting word that the Electoral Commission has rethrown the preferences between Labor and the Greens. At the moment, we believe it's only postal votes that have been thrown. These are flowing 75% to Labor and around 24% to the Greens. Given the high Liberal vote for those postal votes, the results could be skewed. It could project Labor being ahead, but Melbourne, I'm going to leave in doubt. Until all of the preferences are completed. As we're seeing, it's currently an 8.6% swing to the ALP. The pendulum predicts that Melbourne is a 6.5% seat, so Labor currently could win. However, given the fact that there's only a few thousand votes between the two candidates, it's still too close to call. Same within Wills. Wills, Samantha Ratnam, the former member of the Upper House in Victoria, left her job to run for the seat of Wills. She is currently marginally being defeated by Labor's Peter Khalil. I believe that this will switch back over to Greens, and I believe that she could potentially be the next member for Wills. However, that being said, their preferences again are being recounted and checked over to make sure that the results are correct. That's pretty much all from Melbourne. At the moment, so those two seats, Labor are ahead, and if that trend continues, which I don't believe that it will, we could see the Greens lose their Melbourne seats, or their Melbourne seat altogether. I'll completely go on a tangent and talk about the seat of, give me 2 seconds, I just have to remember which seat it is. The seat of... Where is it? The seat of Ryan, where Elizabeth Watson-Brown, the incumbent MP, 78% of the vote counted with a 4.2 swing to the Greens. I believe that it is safe to call that Elizabeth Watson-Brown will retain the seat of Ryan, defeating Liberals' Maggie Forrest. There's currently, a rough 11,000 votes between the two. With 78% of the vote counted, I do believe that she'll be returned as the MP for Ryan. That's all the seats I want to talk about for the moment. The rest are still, a bit iffy.
Yeah, so some other seats that might be interesting to have have a look at out in WA. There's Turton, and then there's an electorate just north of that. I've completely forgotten the name of it. My apologies. But up there was a safe Liberal held seat held by Ian Goodenough over there. It seems like that that it may be heading over towards. I'm not too sure what's happened. Let me just double check what's happened over there. It will just be.
Yeah.
It'll just be a moment. Well, I just figure out what in the world's going on. So, Bullwinkle's currently too close to call, according to Channel 9. It's pretty much 50-50. It's a brand new electorate over there. And then there's also in WA, because we haven't mentioned WA a little bit. Brand is ALP retained. Bird is ALP retained. Canning Liberal retained. Cowan ALP retained. Curtin Independent retained. Durack Liberal retained. Forrest is too close to call between Ben Small. There's the ALP candidate there, and there's Sue Chapman as well, who's an independent. Over there's been a swing against the Liberals here. So we'll see how that goes. Fremantle, Labor retained. Haslutt, Labor retained. In the seat of Moore, here we go. This is the one I was trying to, the seat of Moore is an ALP gain over there. Ian Goodenough was the member, but he's now running as an independent. The Liberal there, Vince Connolly has not achieved victory tonight. There's been a 3.83% swing towards Labor there. In O'Connor, the Liberals have retained, and Labor has retained Pearce, Perth, Swan, and Tangi. So that's in WA. Over in South Australia, the most interesting seat over there is the seat of Sturt, which used to be, if some of you might know, is Christopher Pyne's old seat. Mr. Fix It. Fix it. We fix things.
Yes.
We fix stuff. Anyway, so 7.2% swing towards the ALP there. That was gained overnight. In Tassie, at the moment, the Liberals haven't gained any seats in Tassie, in Tasmania at the moment. And then
yes, they have in fact lost all of their Tasmanian seats at this election. Bridget Archer obviously losing her seat to I think it was Labor from memory.
Yeah, to Labor. Yeah, Bass. Yeah, Bridget
she
Archer,
was in Bass.
One of the most prominent. Yeah, one of the most prominent moderates. Lost to Jess Teasdale. Jess Teasdale. Labor's gained that one. Braddon as well. Labor's won that one, 15% swing towards Labor there. And Franklin Lyons, Labor's retained, and then Clark, Andrew Wilkie has quite safely retained the seat there. And then in Queensland, as a lot of us know, the seat of Dixon, Peter Dutton's seat, he lost that. In Kennedy, Queensland, Bob Catt has kept his seat quite significantly. The seats where there's been changes, Bonner, ALP gain. Brisbane, which was a Green seat, and it's a three-way contest between Liberals, ALP, and the Greens there, but currently the ALP are currently ahead over there. If would you like to mention that a little bit more, Rowan?
I will mention that it appears that the two-party preferred for the seat of Brisbane is Labor versus Liberal, which we know at the last election it was Labor. I believe it was Labor versus the Greens. It could have been Liberal versus the Greens. Yeah. I know someone was versing the Greens. Stephen Bates, obviously, currently in third place. He's had 0.8 swing against him in first preferences. Trevor Evans obviously winning all of those preferences, but winning the first preferences. But obviously with the Greens preferences flowing to Labor, it's obviously provided the path for Madonna Jarrett to pretty comfortably, I'd say. There's 68% of the vote counted, so we're not sure how pre-poll is going. I haven't had a look at which booths have declared. However, I believe that Madonna Jarrett could probably win. Is probably going to win Brisbane off of Stephen Bates from the Greens.
Yeah, Kevin, sorry, there's someone playing a recorder out there, which is, quite... Which
A
is
recorder.
the old, good
That
old,
is
good old,
creepy.
good old SpongeBob music out there somewhere. Love it. Anyway, so Ford, ALP's gained that seat. Griffith, too close to call apparently, but Max Chandler Mather, who was, rising star in the Greens, he's really struggling in Griffith. If you want to mention that a little bit more, Rowan.
Yeah, the Labor's Renee Coffey obviously leading by around 8,000 votes over Max Chandler Mather. He's obviously not going to secure a second term at this point, I don't believe. Obviously, still very close. However, with 69% of the vote counted, not sure. Again, haven't checked which pre-poll booths have declared and which haven't. But I don't think he'll be returned to power either. So that leaves Ryan currently as the only seat that the Greens will potentially have going into this next parliament.
So, definitely, Melbourne was one of their back in Melbourne. Melbourne was, their first lower house seat that they were able to achieve back in the 2010 election when Adam Bandt was first elected. That was their first, that was the Greens' first seat, but now they've lost that back down to Melbourne. But back to Queensland, in Leichhardt, ALP's gained that seat, so that's all the way up, Torres Strait and also Cairns area up that way. Longman's too close to call. ALP's currently slightly ahead there, 50.2% to Liberals 49.8%. In Petrie, ALP's gained that 51.5% to LNP's 48.5%. And then other than that, all other seats in Queensland, everyone's maintained their seats. I'll go back down to New South Wales because I forgot to mention some seats down in South Sydney. The seat of Banks, which is around the northern part of the Georges River. The ALP's gained that seat. The seat of Barton, ALP's retained that seat there. I actually know the member who's been elected. She's taken over from Linda Burney. She's great there. Bennelong, ALP retained. Liberal retained in Barawa. Blackstone, ALP retained. Bradfield, we've mentioned Bradfield way too many times today. In Calare, that's an independent gain over there. Andrew G, who was a who was a Nationals, didn't get endorsed. Sam Faraway tried to contest that seat. Sam Faraway has lost that race. What are some other gains? In Hughes, so the seat of Hughes, this was definitely something that I, wasn't fully expecting. David Moncrief has won the seat of Hughes, that sort of southing a lot of Sutherland Shire and also Holsworthy as well. Jenny Waugh, seat there, and regular at the Sydney Tramway Museum. She's lost her seat there. Who else have I forgotten to mention? I believe that all the other seats, other than the ones that I've just mentioned, have all retained.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's a Banks and Hughes. Labor has gained. And Calare, Andrew G there has has kept a seat, but as an independent. So the Nationals overall have lost that seat. And then in the ACT, there was a little bit of a contest for a little while down in the seat of Bean down there at the moment. 84.56% of the vote at the moment. It's contest between ALP and independent Jesse Price. Would you like to mention a little bit more about that, Rowan?
So the Bean electorate obviously was previously an ALP pretty much safe seat. It was held on a margin of 12.9%. 50 out of the 52 centres are reporting their primaries, and the 2 out of the 52 are reporting preference count. At this point in time, with 84% of the vote counted, and only leading by 4,000 votes, but with the swing, I think it's pretty clear that David Smith will probably be returned as the MP. However, we're seeing a massive swing away from Labor in the two-party preferred. Obviously, Jesse Price currently 47.5% on the preference count versus David Smith's 52.5%. So it's still relatively close. However, with 84% counted, I still believe that David Smith will probably retain that seat for Labor. However, the margin will definitely be altered. Apologies for my words being muddled up. The margin will significantly reduce for Labor as to how safe that seat is.
Okay, wonderful. So there's South Australia, just very quickly. Mayo, Rebecca Sharkey has retained that seat. We've already mentioned a little bit about Sturt, Christopher Pyne's old seat that's been regained. And then in the Northern Territory, there, Lingiari and Solomon, there's been, both have been retained by Labor. Lingiari had a swing towards the ALP. Solomon had a 6.48% swing against the ALP towards the Country Liberal Party. But both have remained with Labor. In Victoria, I want to make sure I haven't forgotten any. In Bendigo, currently too close to call at the moment between the ALP and the Nationals. And I'll just quickly mention. So we've already mentioned Deakin. We mentioned Deakin early tonight as a ALP gain. It's currently too close to call in Goldstein at the moment. Zoe Daniel and Tim Wilson have been competing there. There's been a 1.75% swing against the independent, according to the new results there. There's a Zoe Daniel has less than 100 votes advantage to Tim Wilson there at the moment. If you want to mention just quickly both Bendigo and Goldstein.
So Bendigo, obviously the Nationals have run a really strong campaign, obviously increasing their marketing budget quite significantly. I think going into Bendigo, you pretty much were not on a street without a Nationals call for it or some sort of Nationals marketing. Obviously, Lisa Chester quoting herself, I have not bombarded anyone with, it's not really a quote, but something along the lines of, if I recall from the ABC broadcast last night, I've respected people's wishes and not bombarded them with marketing. However, obviously, if you're going to see loads and loads of marketing, you're going to look into these candidates and see what they stand for. Bendigo is really surprising. It could have something to do with, obviously, the Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen is from Bendigo. It could be a site that we could see replicated at the state election coming up in 2026. However, I do not believe this will be the case. Bendigo, relatively safe Labor seat in the state. So Bendigo, testing me here, believe it's Bendigo East that she's a member for. It is currently 50.3%, 49.7% Andrew less than for the Nationals. However, 85%, I'm still not going to call it because there is a 10.9 swing percent away from Labor. Bendigo, a relatively safe seat for Labor. Let me just double check what the margin was prior to the election. Bendigo was, if I can actually read, Bendigo was an 11.2% safe seat for Labor, with a 10.9% swing away from Labor. Labor are really in trouble in Bendigo. I'll touch on Goldstein just quickly, if I can find where my numbers are. It is quite literally 50-50 in Goldstein at the moment, a 3.2% swing to the Liberals. Goldstein was obviously an independent, 3.3% going into the election. So it would be interesting to see how Zoe Daniel, if Zoe Daniel will at all retain that seat. She is currently leading by 95 votes. So I just want to touch on that. When people say your votes don't count, they definitely do, because with a margin of 95 votes, it definitely comes down to singular votes. I believe it is still currently too close to call. However, I'm going to touch on another Victorian seat, and that is the seat of Monash. The former Liberal MP who defected to the crossbench, Russell Broadbent,
Russell Broadbent
is currently going to lose his seat to the Liberals' Mary Aldred. The seat of Monash is relatively right-wing. Their voters are... Oh, it's pinned. That's why I can't find it. Surprisingly, it is a Labor versus Liberal contest, which is pretty much okay. At the moment, surprisingly, there's no preference counts available, so we're going off first preferences. Mary Aldred leads by approximately 8,000 votes over Labor's Tully Fletcher. There's a 2.4 swing percent to Liberals, previously held 2.9%. 79% of the votes counted. I think it's pretty clear that there is no path to victory for the Labor Party in Monash, and Mary Aldred, I called it last night, will be elected as the new member for Monash. Therefore, Liberals will retain Monash.
Okay, then, and thank you so much. And for anybody in New South Wales who doesn't know, there is a Victorian state election happening next year. That will be very interesting to see all over there. It's a whole can of worms, Victorian state politics itself. A few that I'll just quickly mention. Indi, there was supposed to be someone joining us from Indi tonight. Unfortunately, they couldn't join. They haven't joined at the moment. But Indi over there, there's been a 0.45% swing against Helen Haynes there, but it's still, a very comfortable margin there. Helen Haynes is definitely staying there. In Kooyong, even though that there's been a 1.5% swing against Dr. Monique Ryan, Amelia Hamer has not been able to gain that seat back to the Liberals. Kooyong used to be, the seat of Josh Frydenberg for quite a long time until he lost the seat. Macnamara was a seat the Greens were wanting to contest, but they haven't gone in even close there. In Wills, according to Channel 9, they're still saying that it's too close to call between Peter Carhill, ALP, and the Greens candidate over there. Would you like to, Rowan, if you want to quickly mention about what's happening in Wills?
Again. Peter Khalil obviously currently leading by 2,000 votes. Samantha Ratnam is relatively liked in the seat of Wills. She obviously served as the member of the Legislative Council in Victoria for I don't even know which region it was. One of the regions. Obviously very liked by electors. My words. Very liked by the voters in that electorate. It is very close to call. Wills currently with a 3% swing to the Greens. It was held by Labor with a margin of 4.6%. So they do need some, I believe, they could win. However, it's still too close to call. We do have to wait for more more pre-poll votes to come in from that last polling place, with 49 out of the 50 polling places reporting primaries, 49 out of the 50 also reporting the preference count. So not sure what's going on at that last polling place. Haven't even opened their ballot boxes yet. However, that last polling place is definitely going to determine the result of the Wills election.
Okay, so just to everyone, if unless if you're in Bendigo, Deakin, Flinders, Goldstein, I'm just gonna make sure.
Sorry, Ron, I'm just
in
gonna have
Melbourne.
to.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just gonna have to head off for the night. Head off the live stream. Thank you so
Okay.
much for having me,
Okay.
Matthew, and
Thank you.
great to talk
You're
with you.
welcome, Jack.
yourself.
Thank you. You're welcome, Jack. I finally got to make it work and finally made it happen. So,
Yes.
so that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it, Jack. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you. So, and Wills is still too close to call. Monash, Melbourne, Goldstein, Flinders, Deakin, and Bendigo, all those seats they're keeping. All the other seats, they're the parties that currently hold that seat, candidates that hold that seat, have maintained that. So what I'm going to do, we've just mentioned all the states. I really wish I could share my screen, but it's really been mucked up. But there's been but we can't forget that there's also the Senate as well. If you want to Rowan, if you want to quickly mention about
my Senate results. Labor obviously taking out currently 4 of the seats. Coalition taking out 6 of the contested seats. Greens currently picking up 2. One Nation not picking up any. David Pocock obviously winning his by the looks of it. There are still 5 Senate seats in doubt, so I won't touch on those seats. I can't even remember which seats they are. 35.7% of the vote is being counted. We know that Jacinta Price for the Country Liberal Party. We know that. I'll mention how states and territories senators are elected at different times. State senators, there's testing me here. I want to say 12 senators, 6 getting elected every 3 years. They serve 6-year terms, so it's obviously staggered. However, obviously, when Australia was federated, we didn't really like we didn't plan for additional territories, and we don't like those additional territories very much. So we only give them 2 senators, and they have to stand for re-election every federal election cycle. They only serve 3-year terms. So we know that their job is a little bit more difficult than those in the States. I just want to touch on the Liberal and Labor seats likely in Victoria. Jane Hume, who was an incumbent in the Senate, is likely to win that 6th seat. Currently, Michelle Ananda Raha, who was the MP for the seat of Higgins, which has now been abolished, is currently ahead for that 6th seat. I cannot find who else could possibly contest that seat, who would probably even win that seat, would be able to keep up with Michelle. I think she will most likely win that seat.
Yeah, so that's how things are going. So New South Wales, there's been 2 Labor senators re-elected, Tony Sheldon and Tim Ayres, and with the Liberals, Andrew Bragg has been re-elected. It's likely that Maureen Faruqi is going to win a seat. Jessica Collins is likely to win a seat, and then there's also another Labor senator who's likely to get in. It looks like that, the Nationals, there was one Nationals candidate. Looks like that candidate will not be getting in, so the Nationals will be left with only one senator representing New South Wales altogether, because there's still, another six senators that will be staying. That's Jenny McAllister, Deborah O'Neill, Ross Cadell, Maria Koviak, and Dave Sharma, and David Shoebridge. So I've just gotten a message from Blake. He finally has gotten his power back. So yeah, over in Victoria, just mentioned a little bit there, but it's likely that 3 Labor senators there, 2 Liberal, 1 Greens there. In Queensland, it's likely there's according to the ABC, there's 2 Labor, definitely 2 Labor senators, 1 LNP senator elected. Likely Greens going to be elected. Larissa Waters from the Greens. Susan McDonald, LNP, is likely to get in. But Malcolm Roberts from One Nation is apparently ahead over in Queensland at the moment. They've just said that with the ABC. So I'm not too sure what's quite happening with that. But we'll see. We'll see how things.
The quota in Queensland, candidates are required to get 142,000 votes. Malcolm Roberts, I cannot even see how many votes he's on. But the votes for One Nation at the moment, 71,000. So the closest out of the parties contesting who have not been elected, Jared Rennick, who was on a joint ticket with the Katters Australia Party, obviously will lose his seat at this election. And obviously Legalised Cannabis Party obviously not getting any seats whatsoever, with only 45,000 votes for them. I believe that Susan McDonald will win and Larissa Waters will win their seats. Malcolm Roberts likely to win. However, I cannot see a path to victory for the other parties to gain that seat.
Yeah. All right, then. So we'll quickly go. We mentioned a little bit about the Northern Territory and also the ACT. It seems like that the 2 senators there, David Pocock and former Chief Minister Katie Gallagher is going to, they're going to both maintain their seats. In Tassie, there's 2 Labor senators that have won, 1 Liberal senator who's won, 1 Green senator who's won. There's 1 Liberal candidate who's currently ahead, and then Jackie Lambie at the moment, who's the Jackie Lambie network. Jackie Lambie's currently ahead in the number 6 position there. Then there's also South Australia, I just quickly mentioned. It seems like they got 3 Labor senators on the way at the moment, and 2 Liberal and 1 Green. Sarah Hanson-Young looks like that she's going to maintain that. And then WA, it looks like 3 Labor senators, 2 Liberal senators, and 1 Green senator, Senator Jordan Steele-John. Over there, and I believe that's we've mentioned all the states and territories now. We did mention I'll just quickly mention Northern Territory. We just mentioned about Jacinta Price and Manandiri McCarthy, Labor over there, so they've both won spots over there. Rowan, do you have any comments about about any of the any of the other state Senate seats that I've just quickly mentioned?
Not that we're running for election. I'm just going to point out, in Tasmania, there is currently a vacant Senate seat of continuing senators. So is I'm not sure if everyone is aware, when there is a vacant Senate seat in any of the states, it's not up to the electors to decide. It is up to the state parliaments to decide. And this can also be viewed, it is not up to the Governor General to actually call for the election of senators. It is up to the state governors to indeed call for those senators. So it is likely that at some point after the election and through to the next federal election, that the Tasmanian Parliament will probably appoint a new senator for Labor. Not sure who that will be, but if the ACT is anything to go by, and Victoria for that matter is anything to go by, they'll prefer to elevate one of their own to the Senate. Not sure what else to go off, but that's about all I have to say in regards to the Senate.
Yeah, wonderful. So so just before I go, there's a few questions that have come up. The long-term plan, there was one person who's asked what's the long-term plan for the LNP now. Just in my own opinion, they're going to have to do a lot of soul searching. Recently, the Liberal Party's been going more, right of centre, well more than right of centre. And around here, my own community, I think, a lot of people are struggling to support that, that kind of movement. And, so they got to do, a lot of soul, they're going to have to do a lot of soul searching, whether they want to continue that, that pathway that they've been going on at the moment, or go back to their sort of, back to their liberalism, free market ideals from the pre John Howard era. And then there was one person who's asked how the legalized cannabis party who's gone from, which this person is called the Weed Party. But I know that over New South Wales, they've achieved 4% of a vote, 81,000 votes. That's, which is only 0.28, 0.28 of the quota. So they're definitely not getting a seat in New South Wales. I don't know about any other, in any others. I'll just, in Victoria, it's about 4.3%, which is 0.30 quota. So they're not getting in. So I haven't seen any, any places where the legalized cannabis party are going to actually win a Senate seat tonight, unless if you have anything else to mention about them, Ron, if you've seen anything else contrary to that.
Have anything else to add on the legalized cannabis party? I want to touch on the long-term plan for the Liberal National Party. What we're seeing nationally is younger people and younger voters turning away from the Conservative Party. I don't believe, personally, that the Liberal Party is standing up for what conservatism is anymore. In fact, I think they are far too conservative for a centre-right party, obviously drifting further and further right. Yes, it's okay to have those ideals, but it's also important to be respectful of, especially of First Nations people. Peter Dutton refusing to stand in front of the Indigenous flag, which quite literally is disrespectful to sort of just brush the history under the rug. I know that the history regarding that is quite brutal and for both parties. However, people have obviously done the wrong thing, and that needs to be acknowledged. We can't just throw it under the rug. Otherwise, people are going to obviously cracking about it. The Liberal Party will need to go through a full sort of autopsy process, see what went wrong. And yeah, I'm going to say that unless Labor seriously fucks up in this term of government, I don't think that they will win the next election either. Not if they continue their current. Let's just touch on the prominent candidates for Liberal leader. We've got people like Sussan Ley. We've got Dan Tehan for Wannon. If they're choosing leaders from Dan Tehan, for example, unsafe seats, Wannon was one of the most marginal seats this election. for the Liberals. Let me
Yeah,
just touch
an
on
independent candidate. There was Alex Dyson was
3.8.
the
It's
candidate.
not
Yeah.
if they're going to get a repeat of what happened to Dixon. Dixon was a 1.7% swing to the Liberals prior to the election. If they continue to choose people from marginal seats, it's going to happen again and again and again. And quite honestly, what we've seen today, what we've seen last night, is a repeat of what has happened in Canada just a few days ago.
Yes, so just as some context, there was an election in Canada last week. I did mention this on TSET's Transport's live stream. There was, because there were questions about Peter Dutton losing a seat earlier into the night. And I did mention so two of the main political, in Canada you got the Liberal Party, which is the current governing party, the opposition party, which is the coalition, and a third party, quite a major third party, the NDP, the New Democratic Party. Jack McSing, the leader of the NDP, he lost his seat, and then he also lost, and then also Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, also lost his own seat as well. And I agree with Rowan as well, especially with in where I live in the Bradfield electorate. I think a lot of people are concerned about the party going too far to the right. I remember back in 2022, little 15-year-old me going, the Liberal Party's going to go too far to the right, and this is going to happen again in 2025 if they don't do something. Here we are now. So they are not just losing in the traditional marginal between Liberal and Labor. They're also losing the heartland seats as well. Community independents like where I am, it's 50-50 at the moment between Nicolette Buller and Giselle Capterian, which who we've mentioned quite a bit tonight, but also in other seats, Kooyong, Goldstein. We don't know what's going to happen with that, but they lost last time. The Liberals lost last time. There in Curtin, WA, they've that's staying independent, and here in Sydney, McKellar, Warringah, and Wentworth, independent candidates are staying there's Ali Stegel, Allegra Spender, and also Dr. Sophie Scamps. They are they're all keeping their seats up here, which prevents the Liberals from reclaiming those seats, and that's probably going to remain the case until they get back to their to the Menzies ideals of advocating for free market, rather than the current way at the moment with all the culture wars and all that, which around here, culture war fights and all that is just not popular here. It never it never really has, and it never, and I don't think it will be around here. So what I'll do is that with that, my laptop is on 3%. Do you have anything else to say, Rowan? Like just the final little
I don't have any further
overall
comments, I don't think. If anyone wants to keep up to date with the work that I'm doing, you can head to my Instagram at Rowan McMaster, or head to my website, rowanmcmaster.com. You can contact me there, and I'll be happy to provide you more information.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually do that afterwards. I'd love to hear what else you're doing as well. Thank you so much for for joining tonight. Made tonight extra special. Having you here, having a few more people than I was expecting. So it's been wonderful having you here, Rowan, and it's been wonderful having everyone else who was here today. Jack Oakhill, and Blake Shadbolt, who was here earlier. Who were all here earlier tonight. So thank you so much to all of them, and thank you so much to all of you for watching, and I hope that you all have a great night. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, Rowan, and bye from me. Have a great night. Thank you.